record. There we go. And then that way, if there's anything that like you would kind of want me to go over again, like you can just sort of go back into the video and have a look at it. So envelope. No, is it not here? Where is it? Is it re-enveloper? No, it's not that one. MIDI effect. Envelope MIDI. Could that be it? Yeah, okay. And then from the instrument rack, you can use this to shape your reverb. So, I mean, not your reverb, what am I on about? You can use this to shape your cue. So, well, maybe not the cue. Let me go back and delete that. Map that to frequency 2's gain. Then I'll go back into number 1 and pop that back. Move that up, move this onto the snares fundamental. You can see that that's now boosting that fundamental every time that the note is being pressed on the audio clip. And you can change that to the decay time to be whatever you want, and you can set how far it goes up. So 50% would be where I'd start it at, and then I'd probably put it up to like 70%. So it's given a little boost every time the MIDI is being triggered. And then we can bring that down really tight. So it's about 20 milliseconds. So just on that first transient, it just creates the transient to snap. From Max for Live, using only filter, should use more. Yeah, Fab Filter's dynamic option does do the same thing. It's with the dynamics one though, I'm not sure if you can change the attack and release settings. Like these envelopes are really useful just for dialing in things that are really specific. You can do that. You can even use the envelope MIDI with the Fab Filter one if you want, and you can get a more precise result. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I've been doing this a lot. Normally I make my snares and stuff in Serum, so I do it with Serum Effect, not Serum Effects, but within the other phone envelope section within Serum, and I put it on the EQ within there, just to add a little bit more punch. And it's almost like transient shaping, but without transient shaping the high end as well. So yeah, it's just giving like a bit more thump to the fundamental. And then maybe what I'd do as well, because I've increased the fundamental quite a bit, I'd use a channel EQ to just add a little bit to the top end, or one of your Pultecs or something. So yeah, so you've got loads of pads, synths, kick, snare, send. That's cool. What have you got on here then? So you've got DBX 160, great compressor. Jealous actually that you've got that because I really want one of those. Pultec, nice. SD, I don't know what that is, but looks pretty cool. And then Devil Lock, banging. What I'd also do for your kick, snare, send. Oh, nice, cool. Have you got that, like, so that's running parallel? Is that what you're using to like smash the drums with, or are you using the DBX 160 to do that? Yeah, yeah. Nice. So you got your, is this your stereo sound? Cool. Bass verb, nice. Yeah, everything's sounding clean in terms of your sends and stuff. Long verb, cool. Keeping those separated, I like that. One thing I'd say as well to add to all of this, which I haven't explained in a tutorial yet, is if you really want like your kicks and snares to really like cut through, I would also put duck on your reverbs as well, because you know that can really tighten up your mix. If I grab version of duck and just see what happens, you just see what it's saying. Sidechain reverb sounds. Yeah, yeah. So, is it bass verb? Just gonna set these up real quickly. So we've got kick. Have you got sidechains actually already set up? Because me doing these by ear might be a bit finicky. But I can do it by ear if it's no issue. No, okay. There we go. So we got that one there. So pop that one just on there, put that on the bass verb. Then I'll put that one and put that on the snare as well. Because anything that's like lingering over a period of time, and then other frequencies come over the top of it that match it, can just create random bumps in amplitude. I did it to aligning phase also, cool. We'll put this one on the, where's the snare? There's the snare. Did have a aligning phase also. What did you do on the sensor? The transient clip. Yeah, basically. It allows it. It also just creates this like this pumping sound. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's you know a lot of people will be like when you hear about sidechain tutorials and things like that, it's like, oh, you know only house and stuff you'd put sidechain on, you know, on everything. But like I disagree. Like with electronic music, like a lot of it, you know, all the power is in the kick and the snare that drives the track forwards. And you know, the louder that those can come across, the better. And it makes your track sound cleaner. Like the whole mix just sounds like a hell of a lot more professional with everything being sidechained where it can be. You know, there are some people that make sick music without it. Don't get me wrong, but um, you know, if you compared like a track that has sidechain and everything with a track that doesn't, and even if they're both really high quality, really great tracks, and then you ask someone how is the mix, they'd probably say that the track with the sidechain and everything is cleaner because it just has this sound that it's just everything's more defined within the track. And there's a lot of you know, snares cover a lot of mid-range frequencies and upper mid-range frequencies that cover over a lot of the instrument range as well. And if the snare gets lost behind those, with there's a lot of elements and stuff going on, yeah, it can totally, yeah, totally like get lost with shit. And snares as well. I mean, and kicks as well, because they tend to be sitting a bit higher, which I'm gonna have a look at now as well, real quick. Just gonna have a look at this with yeah. So maybe another thing as well I'd recommend is maybe putting a high pass with linear phase mode on, just to like, try and like get under that fundamental as much as you can, because there's something about like a high pass or like a regular high pass. It can really like if you tuck it real close to your fundamental, it can really add some extra like thump to your kick. And anything that's like below your fundamental, it's just wasted energy, really. I wouldn't go too tight with it because anything. I wouldn't go any higher than maybe like a 36 dB per octave curve, because anything more than that just sounds a bit unnatural. Even I'd probably say 24 is normally where I set it at, but if I really need to get in tight, I will go up to like 36. But 24 dB per octave slope tends to be like the sweet spot, I think. So yeah, I'd say for this track it's around 70 to 73 hertz, somewhere in that ballpark. And then wherever you've got, normally wherever I put that up to as well, I just give it just a little nudge. Give it a little bump there, just to make it a bit more pronounced. Let's listen to some of those effects as well. There's a lot of low end in these effects as well, from hearing it anyways. Because like when I come to mix a track anyways, what I'm looking for is for the sounds that I'm including, can I get them to fit in the track and be like contextual? So like, do they apply the effect that I want it to apply, but then with as little information as I can put into the track. So I try to remove as much as I can from a sound to make space for other sounds, but without losing the integrity of the sound in the first place. So like, let's say there's an effect like you've got here where there's a low click, which adds to the lo-fi character of it. Like, how much of that can I remove without taking away the character of the track, taking away its character from the track, So there's a little pop there. Like, I want that pop to still be as punchy as it is. So if I go up to like 300 hertz with that, that's too high. And then if I listen to that in context, so like I can hear that pop, it's still there. Might sound a little bit thinner, like a tiny percent thinner, but it's still there. It's still there. It has that effect. And every time that you're removing these little bits of like low frequencies and high frequencies, and you're still trying to keep the sound contextual, everything that you might be not so much like thinning it out, but just you allow more space for things that do have weight and do have energy to cut through. Let's have a look. We've got this group here. And also, if you do use Pro Q3, zero latency is great if you're using loads of instances across the project. But when you're coming to the mixing stage, I'd recommend putting it into natural phase mode. For some reason, when you're using it over the whole project, if everything's switched into natural phase mode, I just think it sounds a little bit cleaner. Try disabling it. See. Okay, yeah. So the main two. Okay. How do you make that bass better? So normally where I start with basses and things is okay, because I'll strip back all the processing just to give it a listen. Okay, normally, oh, you've got a sub underneath this, haven't you? Oh no, do you not have a sub underneath this? Is this just the basses? Okay, because normally where I'd start for, because let me explain a little bit about FM, especially within Serum. That you might have like a thick sounding sub and stuff, but what happens when you have a carrier signal and there's a modulating signal that's modulating a carrier signal, and you're changing the pitch of the modulator, you're essentially reducing the fundamental of the sine wave that is being produced from the from the carrier signal, because you're modulating its frequency. So and the other thing is as well, when you're introducing frequency modulation, you're also creating sidebands. Now, sidebands are basically these extra harmonics that are like coming up. Wait, there's no spectrum on here, is there? Okay, let me move that out. Here it is. Pop that out there. So you can see all these like extra harmonics that are sitting in and around your frequencies here, which are popping up in between, and that can be introduced by distortion or usually from FM. Don't know how to make it. I'm aware of that, but don't know how to make it not like that. So what you have to do is basically create a second instance of Serum. So like normally what I would do is create a group, and I would duplicate Serum into a new chain, use the exact same patch that you've used before, but then just turn everything else off, and then use the sub oscillator and put it at the same frequency of your carrier. And then all of your pitch modulation or anything that you're doing, do you have any pitch modulation going on? No, okay. Then everything will be carried over, but just with an operator. Yeah, so the reason why I do it with another Serum is just because with my basses, I tend to do a lot of like pitch modulation with them. And I do the exact same thing where I make the bass in one patch, and then what I'll do later on when it comes to mixing it down is I'll separate the basses into subs, and just to get the extra bit of cleanliness out of it. And yeah, and then this way, if I do that, then all the pitch modulation will be carried over with the effects and things, and I'd also select that on direct out, and normally the slightly more saturated sine, was it or the rounded sine, or whatever they call it within the manual, and then that one will be going around this effects chain. So that effects chain would go in there, this sub would go out clean, and then this would all sit in here. And then what I would do before going into this effects chain, oh no, maybe not before, because you've got a black box on there. What I would do then is use a Pro Q3, maybe towards here. So before, like normally I tend to do EQing before side chaining, just because of the phase thing. You know, EQs do affect phase ever so slightly, and side chain it towards the end of your chain normally sounds cleaner. And then I just separate that out at about between 80 and 120, somewhere around there. Let's give it an even 100, and we'll pop it there. And then all right, so it's slightly less muddy. Now what we can do is attack these frequencies in the bass, which are, you know, giving it that, you know, overly muddy sound. So one trick that I've learned in the past like year or so, when it comes to EQing, it's like really listen to an EQ, is basically select the loudest setting that your EQ can go to. So like FabFilter Pro Q3 can go to like plus 30, and then I'll get a narrow band and just, you know, really give it like 30 plus dB and just listen to those frequencies that I really don't want in there. So that one's quite resonant, but you know, it's not muddy. Between here, this is all mud essentially. Um, and the thing is, what you want to do is when you hit, you know, get all that presence, you do that for all sounds, or just the ones who need it. I do it for most sounds because I'll be EQing almost every single element in my project, and it, like the first thing that I do is I'll have an EQ which will be for removing things like this, so like any sounds that I find unpleasant within the audio, and I'll go right, find the problem sounds and go like, let's do it with this one. So I've already established that this low note is something that's bugging me, and let's have a listen for some other ones. That's quite a barky one. All right, now so around 400, like high 300s, around 400. And maybe a tiny little one around 600. So that would be like where I'd start in terms of my subtractive EQ. And maybe one of these fundamental ones is a little bit too loud for my taste. So I just do a tiny little, like a really tight little dip on that one, just to allow that lower one, you know, around the 300 area to sort of poke through. Cool. He's just that much around 150. The rest was cut. Yeah. The thing is as well, you could even do it with a dynamic EQ if you wanted to as well. Like sometimes I do that. You know, it's just before when a sound gets a bit too loud, I'll just pull that down. And then I'll just set the level on that to like when it's getting too loud, you know, just so that when the mud builds up, I can pull it down. Yeah, like honestly, dynamic EQ is probably one of the more important things to nailing a mix, at least a modern day mix, anyways, because it's just so powerful because you don't have to like totally remove entire frequency bands. You know, you just have to remove it when it gets too much. You know. See your black box settings. Oh, looks good. A lot of these OTT, Fab Filter, black box, Insight. The other thing I'd maybe do as well, because you're running into black box quite hot, I would also use a utility and just bring down the volume a little bit, because for some reason, I just find when you're running into black box, like really loud, it can sort of like over egg the cake, if you know what I mean. Because black box is a great plugin, but you just don't want to overdo it. Utilities, that's the one. Utility. Yeah, no, for sure. Honestly, like if you want to make a turning sound bass, that is it. You know, like that is the one-stop shop. You can sort of do it by ear, but if you've got a VU meter as well, I'd recommend running into black box at 0 VU. Um, I think I've got a VU meter, just like a random waves one, and normally I just make sure that that's peaking at 0. Yeah, and like probably go with like -10. Yeah, that'd be all right. And then at this point, then I can dial in everything. And the other thing I'll probably do as well, just to tighten up the low end on that. And just delete all those. Linear phase mode. Just pop that at 20 hertz just to save a bit of headroom as and where I can. I'd normally go a bit tighter on that one just to like sort of brick wall it at 20 because I know that nothing else below there is really going to matter. And like, no system is ever going to replicate that, even probably below 30 hertz. But it does help you save a little bit of headroom when you do that. I probably with this wider as well. I'd probably use that in a little audio effect send, like that, and just have that -6, that at -6, and then yeah, I'll send back the project as well, so you can have so you can use this one. You should have all the plugins that I'm throwing on this, minus like maybe the VU meter or something. And then you can go back to the video and see any settings of things that you might have a slightly different version of if it doesn't work. Loading with wider and putting it at the end of my chain after sidechain. Is that okay? Normally, I would put sidechain as the very last thing in my chain, because what wider might be doing is applying. Because the thing is, I don't know what it's doing. It's a great plugin. I use it myself, but I'm not sure what it's doing in terms of making it wide. I don't know whether if it's a mid-side EQ. It's a bit of compression. Yeah, it could be like mid-side compression. But that's the thing. Like, I'm not really sure what it's doing. So like, normally I would unless it says on their website. But normally with plugins, I don't really know what's going on. I tend to put before my sidechain because I'm not sure if it's messing with the phase again. And things like that. Like I just try to get the cleanest result out of sidechain. I always find just putting it at the very end is usually the route forward. It just has the best results. I've written a lot of music with duck deep in the chain and then also at the end of the chain, and the ones where I've left it at the end of the chain just tend to be a cleaner outcome. Yeah, yeah. What have we got here? Pro Key 3. It's weird that mine's popping up differently to yours, but well, so oh yeah, I was fixing this bass one time. So now that we've got this, I'd probably, because we've got a sub underneath that now, maybe I'd try putting a bandpass in there. And then with that frequency change, with that LFO, I'd also maybe put a little bit of drive in there as well. Um, Maybe a little bit of that fat as well. Sometimes that can work quite nicely. Yeah, so that's made it a little bit cleaner than what it was before. What was it before? It was just a normal low pass, wasn't it? Yeah. Then also what I liked, because now that the sound's like sort of thinned out a little bit. Oh wait, sorry. Say with myself. Let me see. Wait. Let me say. Oh. Yeah. Um, if you want a bit more bite as well on that, maybe what I'd also do is have another chain with like an amp in it, and just really dial in where I want that character to be with like some kind of I'll just use autofilter for this example, but normally I'd use Filter Freak um, by Sound Toys, and you can get the same result with this. Really, what you're doing is trying to get the character, the amp, across. And you can modulate that like to your heart's content. And then what can be cool with an amp as well, because it sounds like really gritty. You can like really you can really smear it when it comes to you can really smear it when it comes to like choruses and flanges and things like that. It's in a block above the bass group. Oh, it's in black above the bass group. Oh yeah, you do have a sub. Yeah, shit. Sorry about that. Totally blanked that. Yeah, hip hop sub's a great preset, but one thing that annoys me is this being locked to the drop and like how it changes the size of it. Like normally what I'd do is I'd have that pitch envelope on full, and then I'd make that attack a lot tighter for my subs. But there should be a way to unmap that, right? Glide attack, drop. Where's drop? Drop. Yeah, maybe just get rid of that, and then dial that in. Is that looping? Oh yeah, it's looping. Just trigger. Don't know what was going on there. Yeah, probably have something like that. Just like, because I think with subs it's really like important to have the definition there. Like if you listen to like any Eternian sounds tracks, they've got I think their subs are amazing. Like they've just got loads of presence, loads of space, and you know it's when you listen to them, they just got like loads of punch to them. That's all that is just a pitch modulation on the sub, and it just makes something that's like quite static, like the hip hop bass. And you know, you're not the only person to come to me that's just puts a hip hop sub bass on everything, because it's there's so many people that put a hip hop sub bass on tracks, and it's just like it's done, you know, and it's crazy how just putting a little bit of pitch modulation on the bass, you know, makes your track stand out. It's showing that you care a little bit more about the subs that you put underneath the tracks. There's an absolutely amazing tutorial online. I'll find it. It's this video here, making insane subs. Like he makes a bit of a bait sub in the video, but the concept is what matters. And that this video is probably the be all and end all of sub videos that you need to watch, really, in terms of making subs interesting. And yeah, definitely look into it. And he uses operators to do it as well, so definitely definitely check that one out. He's sick, and that video is mental. And yeah, maybe what I do here as well, remove that and go into the drop down menu down here where the formula is. Use a multis harmonic series, and choose maybe like the third, fifth, or ninth harmonic. Probably go with let's go with the fifth. Remove that modulator. So I'll do this for the sub. So this is the sub patch. So I've got the sub there with the rounded sub, and this is so if I just hit that, that's just playing like the sub note. And then I just play about with what harmonic sounds the best. So actually the third harmonic sounds quite nice. Normally what I'd use is the Melder, because Mr. Bill goes into this as well with his tutorial, the Melder, the oscilloscope. And then with this one, like if I turn down the volume on here, you can see it's like just a normal rounded sine. If I bring this up, normally I just try to like make the wave just a little bit more interesting, but still quite like rounded. you know, so it just looks like a little bit different than a normal sine. And then that way, the more that you skew that and like make it a bit more squarey or a bit more soary, but it's still a sine wave. It has a slightly different characteristic with a few actual little harmonics in there, which make it hum a little bit nicer. Even through a set of headphones, it just makes it sound a little bit more warm rather than just like the static sine wave that can sound a bit boring and dull underneath your tracks, you know? On top of this, because it depends how like far you want to take it, because you've obviously got like your stereo sends and stuff like that. Um, then it's a matter of like, okay, over the course of this track whilst it's playing, do I want it to sound wider at certain points and not wider at certain points? And then, yeah, exactly. And you know, maybe on these higher notes, you might want to swap stereo sends, for example, or like because you've got this, was it the bass send here? Maybe you want to create two different sends. So you've got like a flanger and chorus on one send, and then maybe a phaser and maybe even a reverb and stuff on another one. And then whenever these notes go up and change, like maybe one can change in terms of how wide it goes on one note and then another one, or and because I don't know if you've heard my track Dread, but the amount of modulation and stuff in that, and like sends and changes and things, and the automation between different groups is mental, and that's how you create that sense of like varying width across the whole track. Yeah. No, definitely. And it's just one of those tracks where it's where I spent a lot of time just focusing on making sure that reverbs were sidechained from everything in the track until there was no space. So like when there are no things playing, like the bass reverb, the bass was sidechained to the bass reverb, so that I had a really long reverb on the bass, and then when the bass hit, all the reverb went away. But when the bass wasn't playing, the reverb swept up and just it sounded like larger than life. And then whenever the bass hit again, it would disappear entirely. Yeah, exactly. Um, and I've been doing that a lot in some of the projects I've been working on recently, and it just creates a huge amount of separation between. But it's not so much about separation, but creating another layer of atmosphere on top of something that you've already got in there. You know, if you're using another element to fill out space, that's one way to do it. But also using elements you've already got in the track is another way to do it, and it sounds a lot more homogenous. Like a bit more cohesive to reuse sounds. Yeah, it's really useful. Let's keep going with this. Yeah, you totally do it on snares as well. Like depends what type of reverb you'd be doing it on though, because like part of the sound of a spring reverb is capturing that transient, and having that like sort of ring out and twizzle out, and the same with like a plate as well. But definitely with like more like algorithmic reverbs and convolution reverbs and things like that, which are supposed to like emulate real spaces, then yeah, that's definitely a technique that you could use on snares, which could be pretty cool. But normally what I do is I'll have like, because you've got what is it? You've got like a long verb here. Like normally in my projects, I've got a long verb and a short verb, and then that long verb I'll automate. So like normally it'd be something that's almost a like an infinite reverb, and then I'd go in with automation and just be like, okay, I'm going to put a utility on here, automate the gain, and then just go right for this last snare on the 8 bar. The reverb is gonna ring up like that. And so when it hits here, it'll go, whoosh, and then like the sound of the reverb of the snare will be used to make it almost like yeah, exactly. And you can do that with delays as well. Like delays with like a high feedback. So like sometimes I'll have like a delay, like a H delay by waves on a send, which will just have like an infinite feedback that I can use to dial in where as and when on particular elements. Normally, I wouldn't do it on a send. I'd normally do it within like an inch. I'd make a group within a rack and then do it that way. But yeah, exactly. So like I try to minimize as much as I can on returns. I have like the ones that I set up, and then like for things that I just want to have a particular element go through, like a singular sound for like a particular effect, then I'll do that within an instrument rack. I'll just create an audio rack, and then I'll just create like a little send, and then use the chain volume to do that with, rather than actually create a brand new send, because it gets to the point where you're writing a tune and then you're like, oh fuck, which one am I going to send it to? And you open up that and you're like, oh, doesn't really say, and you tab out and you're like, ah shit, which one's which? you know I do that all the time in my projects, and like I've got way too many sends by the time I finish a tune. But sends are I think sends are really important, at least in my productions, because what I will do in my projects is um, I'll have the entire project selected like this, and I'll put that into a group. Then I'll put all my master chain on this group that the track fits in, and then that will have all like the limiting and stuff on it when it goes to master. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I was about to explain. Like basically, so I put like, let's say I'll put a limiter on here, Pro L, and so we'll whack that on there. So the entire track will be running through this limiter, right? But then the sends don't go through that, because the sends go to the master, right? So you can see that the sends bypass your limiter. So if I want to have, let's say, drums, drums get destroyed a lot by limiters when you're pushing them, right? And when you limit a track quite heavily, um, you know, you have to watch your sub levels, your kick and snare levels, and then your mid bass levels, because those are the things that are usually going to be the loudest. Mid basses are really, they are something that you want to push loud, and you want to glue with the track by pushing a limiter into it, and like really pushing it all together. But sometimes when you do all that, you're sacrificing the level on your drums. Now, what's great about doing this is because the sends totally bypass your sends, you can basically just have a dry effect, send for your drums. Normally, what I would do though is I'd put um, I put either some parallel compression on there or a saturator, and then I'd run like my entire drums group through a send and just give it that little extra bit of level, like unlimited, like level, like matched on top of that with the limited track, and it just it gives your drums like so much more punch when you do that. It's quite, it, I'd probably say it's like a good like 10% improvement on your drums if you use that technique, because it really does help them slap, especially if you've got like a really punchy snare. Just because when you limit the entire track, when it comes to mastering, like you do just squash everything, and you want to sort of preserve those transients as much as you can. So what else would I use other than Pro L2? So I mean, I would normally just use Pro L2, but like you saw earlier, the limiter within Ableton doesn't actually sound too bad, but you have to do a specific thing with it to make it not sound shit. And so when you load it up, you can see that it loads up in stereo mode, and it's got fixed release on it with auto. What you want to do is put it in left-right mode, take it off auto, and have the release as close to zero as you can get away with. That doesn't sound too bad, actually. And then you can play about the look ahead settings. You know, maybe 3, maybe 6, depending on how transient your track is. But you can normally hear what's going on at that point. When it comes to mastering your music as well, if you're like doing it to be able to play out and stuff like that, You want to, because obviously you'd want to send it off to someone else to get it done properly. But if you, I didn't know that. So just limiter. So that's just limiter that I meant, not EQ, glue, and so on. Oh, right. Okay. I get you. Well, with Dread, the only thing that I used on the master was Soothe and Pro L2 because I spent so long on the mix. I don't think it needed anything else. Like if you can absolutely nail the mix, um, the only thing you should really use is a limiter if you're happy with it. Um, because I feel like anything that you can fix in the mastering stage or anything that you try to fix in the mastering stage, if you can do it in the mix, do it in the mix. Because really, the only thing that you should be doing on the master should be getting it loud. Oh, cheers, man. Yeah, yeah. With Dread, it pretty much was a copy and paste job because I spent so much time on it. But there were like a few little details in like the drums and stuff that wasn't copied and pasted. But most of like the basses and stuff were pretty much copy paste. But yeah, a lot of my tracks that I do write though they are different with the second drop and the second time round. Um, what else? Oh yeah, if you don't do you have Soothe by the way? Because that is a mix fixer. I'll show you. Yeah, Soothe 2. So it's a harmonic. No, was it a um? What's the word? It's a dynamic resonance suppressor. So Soothe 2 by Oak Sound. It is hands down the best plugin I've ever bought ever. Like, oh, honestly, this changed my mixes for the better in so many ways. It is it is insane. Like, I honestly just like as soon as you put it onto like if you're struggling with low mid issues and stuff like that, like you were saying, this will do it in a heartbeat. Like let's throw it on this beat, throw it on this bass real quick. Main two. Yeah, honestly, it's a cheat code for music. It's mental how good it is. Like all of those like little problems where like things are poking out a little bit too much. Like it just identifies it and puts it down as and when it needs to. You can change your attack and release settings to be as fast or as slow as it needs to be, and it's a crazy mix tool as well. Like not only just for like controlling peaks and things like that, but also for like getting two elements that are sitting in similar frequencies to gel with each other. So like, let's say, um, let's give this a listen and see if there's any like clashing frequencies. Okay, so that effects group, right? So we'll take the bases group and find that effects group. We'll put soothe on the effects group. Yeah, honestly, like it's a total game changer. So we're gonna take um, the bases group, which is yeah that one, and we'll put that into the side chain of soothe. Put the side chain on and open up the bands. Now what soothe is going to do is listen to the basses and then apply a reverse dynamic resonant EQ on the effects section. And now within the effects section, wherever Soothe is ducking down, it will remove those frequencies from the effects section. So there's absolutely no way that those frequencies are going to, like not absolutely no way, but that it's going to suppress those frequencies that are happening in the effects section. based on what the basses are playing over the top of the track. So you can use the Soothe to basically create space within your mix. So like, you know how you've got your EQs EQ differently to allow space for other elements. Soothe will do that for you dynamically whenever those sounds are playing by setting it up on the sidechains to talk to one another. It's it's nuts. Like it saves so much headache and effort. Yeah, yeah. So it's similar to the Gullfoss one. I have listened to it. I've not got it, but I do need to download the demo. I'm waiting to finish a few tracks so that I can listen to it over the series of a few different projects, so I can actually decide on whether to buy it or not. But yeah, it does look really cool. I've heard a lot of good reviews about that one as well. It's basically like the same thing, but for making your mixes sound, I mean, like your pre-masters sound a little bit, you know, like that extra 5% better, which is nice, you know. I think I do have some cracked ones, but most of them are bought. I, which ones are cracked? I do have like two cracked ones, I think. I think Trash 2 is cracked, and um, Isotope Insight is cracked. But I think everything else that I have is bought because Isotope has enough money. I think I don't feel too bad about stealing their products. So yeah, but what you know, once I'm earning like a livable wage from this to the point where I can like quit my job, then I'll buy everything because I think that's fair. Like I buy, you know, compared to someone who's like doing this part time. I think I've bought a lot more plugins than a lot of people that are doing it part time. You know, but yeah, you just got to support smaller developers in it. Like if you're buying like a product from a small company, like give them some money for it. But I think like people like Native Instruments, like I did buy all of Native Instruments stuff, but like I don't feel bad when people crack Native Instruments shit because it's just like, you know, they make stupid money. Like they're well in the green, so it's all good. Just support the little guys because those are the ones that need the funding. It's like have you played about with Vital by was it Matt Titel? Is it? He's like made like the new serum or whatever it is. I've not too much of a play around with it, but um, I was going to buy his thing outright, but I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to subscribe to him, and then you know that way he'll get more money from me in the long run. Because if it's just one guy that's doing it, it's just like, yeah, fair enough, man. I'm just going to support you and basically like be a patron towards him. Yeah, no, phase plant is something else. Like there's synths and then there's phase plant. They're just like above everything else. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, I don't use it enough, honestly. It is the ultimate sound design tool. There are a few things in it which make it a little bit finicky, which makes me always go back to Serum because Serum's really quick. But honestly, like in terms of raw power, you can't yeah, you can't beat Faceplant, man. It's so good. So good. I need to do more videos on that as well because there's not a lot of videos out there and there's not a lot of people using the Kiloheart stuff. And I think they make honestly some of the best plugins out there. Faturator is one of the best saturation units in terms of like being a creative saturation unit. Their distortion unit is crazy. Um, like multipass. Can we take a second to talk about multipass? That thing is just ridiculous. Yeah, yeah. No, it's and the fact that you can put multipass within multipass and create multipassception on multiple levels, it's just like you know the rabbit hole literally just doesn't get deeper. It gets as deep as your CPU will allow you to go. Yeah, the distressor. I was looking at getting an actual distressor, you know, like the actual hardware unit, but it's like 2.5 grand or something crazy. Um, but yeah, like there's a few bits of there's a few bits of kit that I want to get, but it's just silly money. I need to upgrade my computer next, so I'm hopefully going to be doing that next month. But yeah, yeah, no, totally. Like when you open up those, yeah, yeah. Did you get the Ryzen CPU? The what is it? The is it the 3900X or the 5900X? Yeah, yeah. That's literally the one I'm looking to upgrade to because I'm on a 6 core CPU right now. It's not it's okay. Don't get me wrong, but when I'm when I'm making projects and channels are like 150 channels long, with all those sends and like all the extra bits, like it's just my computer dies on me. Honestly, like it's not it's not good. How many cores was your last one? Okay. Hmm. Oh, did you make that kick and phase plant? That's pretty dope. Yeah, sick man. Nice job. I haven't really made too many drums in phase plant yet. So many like different ways you could do it. Yeah, no, Disperse is one of my favorite plugins, like hands down. I'm gonna give that a go though. That looks sick. Oh yeah, I can hear it now. That's pretty dope. One thing I'd try and put on that as well, just to give it a little bit more weight, is the Pultec EQ on a on a kick sounds mental. Really, really solid. Way of like adding low end. It's just got really nice curves to it when you use it in combination with the attenuate feature as well. Honestly, like in terms of like layering kicks and stuff like that, I don't really do it a lot. A lot of my kicks are really simple, just pitch bends on with a sine wave because I want to make it as phase aligned with my subs as I possibly can. And just by creating like a pitch bend, and it's so like normally what I'll do is I'll create like a I won't normally make kicks an operator, but you can. I've just replaced your kick, your phase plant thing. Um, so like let's say I've made a kick patch in here, then normally what I would do is because it is literally just a matter of like pitch bending a sine wave and then making sure that the envelopes are nice and tight. Like it's really not all that. And then to get it phase aligned with my bass, I'll play about the phase down there on the or within serum or something, and then I'll literally just take like something like that, and I'll band out a section of where I want the thump to be. So like normally it's like about 70-ish hertz, maybe like 60-ish, 55, and then I'll just take that and then apply like a top layer separately. Yeah, that's the thing. It's so easy to get like go over the top with a kick in electronic music, but like really like the simpler you can keep it, um, is the louder you can push it, the more it cuts through. You're giving a very specific place for it to come through, and it's like, and as long as you're like keeping that area free from other elements and you're side chaining everything correctly, like it has so much presence as well. So it, sometimes when it comes to music, like there's a lot of things really where um if you keep things simple and just strip things back and leave it, quite uh I don't know, you just maybe just don't overcomplicate things, uh it's just a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but it feels a bit more direct, and you you're not like applying so much information to the point where like you're having to remove so much shit to try and fix a problem that was not necessarily needed in the first place. But when it comes to bases, though, throw that shit out the window, because like you process that shit till the fucking cows come home. Yeah, and the thing is as well, like you listen to certain artists and you think, oh, this sounds really complex, and like in a lot of things that there is really complicated shit going on, but normally when there's really complex stuff going on in one area, other areas are really really simple. Um, it's like making snares as well. Sometimes snares only require a few layers when they sound like they require loads, and you have to be very really specific about what layers you put in, and that you're not putting too many of similar samples over one another, because when you do that, then you're creating, um, you can create like a sort of muddy, um, phasey kind of mishmash of frequencies, which kind of sounds better because you've got two sounds stacked on top of one another, and it sounds a bit louder and a bit more fuller, but in reality, it's a little bit less defined. When I was in education and bass, Leon Switch disappointed me for being too fucking simple, and I thought he was a lot crazier. Yeah, yeah. Leon, Leon Switch's got a really clean sound though, and that's normally yeah, yeah. So like it's usually one of those things. Like I was watching a live stream with like EPROM and Alex Perez not too long ago, and they were doing a bunch of stuff, and I was like, these guys make really mental tunes. And then I was watching them make music, and I was like, why is everything so simple? This is crazy. Like, their shit sounds ridiculous. Why does my shit not sound like their shit? But normally it's because maybe simplicity is key. And the thing is as well, like, when you look into a project like this, when you look into a project of someone's, like if I was to open up Dread and show you all like the stereo shit that was on there, you'd probably just be like, oh, what? Like, it doesn't look too dissimilar from what you've got going on with your bass end, you know? Maybe a slightly different EQ and stuff like that, but like it's it's all based on like the sounds that you put into it and stuff like that, and like I think the other thing is as well, they might start off simple, but the complexity comes with the automation, and the interest comes from like the sounds and how they develop over time, you know. But Deaf Blind has the best kicks in the whole. Yeah, because the thing is, when if you're trying to keep a track like simple and minimalistic, or you've got a repetitive groove going on, you kind of got, like, the way that I think about it is like techno producers. They make the most repetitive shit in the world. Um, like no dissing techno producers, but it is fucking repetitive. But like they've got to keep that shit interesting over a period of like 8 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So like, if you can mix with the mentality of a techno producer, I think you'll make really interesting dubstep. Techno is cool. Yeah, man. I've been to loads of techno nights. Don't get me wrong, I fucking love techno, but I wouldn't sit there and listen to it for like an entire day. You know? Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's sound system music, really, isn't it? Like you want to go to a massive like warehouse and hear it off a massive system and just be like, yeah, this is the vibe around like a couple hundred people, and I have all the lights going and that. View on Outlook. No, so what was it? I got invited out there, not to play. They just like to go out and chill with some people, but I never got to play. And it is something that I want to go to. But oh, sick, man, that's nice. Yeah, no, I've always wanted to go in it, but I was meant to go this year, or like this year just gone, but obviously shit happened. I set up like they were doing like payment plans or something. And I was gonna go on that, but who knows when we'll ever get Outlook again? At this rate. I mean, Croatia are actually pretty forward thinking with this sort of stuff in it because I've seen that some people are going out there to play, or they've made bookings at least out there and for the end of this summer that's coming up. So who knows? Maybe by then everything will be pretty good. Man, I was any summers without Outlook, and it's the first. Yeah, no, trust me. Yeah, don't even get me started. But to be fair, like Corona's been good because it's allowed me to do things like this with like people like you, and being able to talk to a bunch of people and share knowledge and stuff. And it's something that I've always been doing with my mates, you know, and like trying to help them all get better. And like by finding a platform online and doing that, it's been a really interesting experience for me, you know. Yeah, yeah. But still, I want my nights back. I want to play clubs again. I want to fucking hear a sound system. You know, I've got crazy, massive mastering speakers here, which is great. I can hear down to 20 hertz. I can shake the fucking foundations of the house, but it's not quite the same being on your own, rather than being in a club with a system that's like 4 times the size and hearing it at a different volume. And being able to like play your tracks out in front of a crowd and get a reaction and find out how they're feeling on like your new shit and stuff like that is it's an experience like nothing else. Oh, nice! You got the opals, sick. How are those? I was gonna get these. You know, oh, is there a sub there as well? Yeah, I've heard really good things about those opals. I know, was it Flume used to use them? The guys from like Barely Alive use them. A few D&B guys use them as well that are here in Bristol that I know. They're meant to be really, really solid speakers. Oh, sick. Yeah, I've got some crazy. Um, so I don't think I'll be able to show you on here, but like, just like some big old. Yeah, the room's a bit dark, but they're like the cameras on them now, and they're about I don't know 2 meters tall. They've got like a 15-inch bass woofer. Yeah, the thing is that realistically these speakers are way too big for this room. But I need a room about twice the size, really. But it's still the living room of the house. It is a pretty big room. Um, but yeah, like when it comes down to like monitoring at like 30 hertz and below, it's I can't realistically I can't really tell what's going on in here because to be able to treat a room down to those frequencies, you need like rock wool like absorbers like you see behind me, but they need to be like 2 meters deep. So yeah, if I did that, like the wall would be here, like right behind me, if I wanted to absorb those frequencies. So my system. Um, wait, so what's that? So maybe to put my stems, to show me what's cut. Right, so maybe to put my stems program to show me just what to cut when I switch to audio mode, because I do it in the end, and yeah, I just drag audio, already exported it to you. Don't know what tails to cut in that part of mixing. What do you mean by that? Sorry, I just didn't really get that. I'm sending you two files, one project, one audio exported. Oh, okay, I'll have a look. No, that's not it. Sorry, hang on. So I've got the stems here. Oh, right, just drag them and drop them into a new project, you mean? Yeah, okay. I'll save that back into the, save it as, let's go edit. Okay. Just let that save and close down, then I'll open up this, this other one. This is what I mean by my computer being like really slow. I need to clear up some hard drive space and get a new processor. Yeah, no, I do have one. I've got a terabyte SSD in there already, but I think I need to get another one. So I'm starting to fill it up. Yeah, no, straight up. Cool. Let's just make everything less rainbow. There we go. So what are these for? Is this the same track that you sent me? Yeah, okay. So you want to know where to make the cuts in the audio? What for? With effects and sidechain. Okay. So let's have a look. So if I delete that. What's this? Is that anything? That one's an empty stem by the looks of it. So I'll delete that. Okay, let's take all of this, drop it down. And just to give it a little bit of structure, I'm just gonna remove all the white space in the track, just so that I have an idea of the structure. That's blank. That one's blank. Blank, blank. Ooh. Remove that. That one there, just in case there's a tail. Okay. Okay, so I'm guessing that's the master bounce, isn't it? Okay, so I can mute that. And then that's hats and stuff. So these are sends. Wait, do I want to keep that in? Yeah, that's got information in it, hasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look. Yeah, no, I know. It is really annoying. Okay. Here I have send, hat, snare, effects, verb, snare, step, crash, drums, and bells. Okay. So you want to know where you would put like the side chain on the stems, or because like I'm a little bit confused as to like what do you mean, like where to cut things? To cut unvented tails. I don't know. Like normally, I don't really. I don't know. The things I do stem things out, but like I normally that's after I've done all of like. So normally, what I do in the track, like if there's a tail that's like unnecessary, no, like unnecessary reverb tail, or like maybe when like you over egg, when like you over egg black box, it creates like this crazy like aliasing. So like if I get black box up, and let's say we put this on, where is it? Just put on the drums to make it a little bit more noticeable. Go down. Yeah, we'll put on that kick because kicks are really easy to hear it on. Maybe it's not doing it now, but normally if you put like loads of when you're applying loads of distortion, you get like this thing called aliasing, which is like this weird like phasey sound that like lingers in the back on like the that lingers like after the reverb, like I mean after the reverb, after the sound has been played through it. Then normally what I would do is to cut any parts of the sound that you don't want in your track, or you don't do that, any small distortion sounds, you cut it. So like, normally what I would do is I've got this I use Isotope RX. So Isotope RX is a audio repair tool, and I'll put, so like when I'm stemming out a track like this, not this is what I normally put on everything. So it would be, I think RX8. So I use declick, declip, and what's the other one? If sometimes like a track's too reverby, sometimes I put on de-reverb, but normally I just go back into the project and fix that. But declip, basically, if you've over distorted something, declip is a really good way to minimize the sound of clipping. And declick is amazing for smoothing out your track in general. So normally I'll put this on the master, and I'll also put it on the groups. So like all of my processing that goes on my like neuro bases that are like really aggressive and quite crackly and growly and got quite a lot of like upper mid range stuff going on in them. This is a really cool tool to use. But the thing is, it applies so much latency to your project. It's crazy. Like I wouldn't recommend putting this on to your track, into your project, because it's nuts um, how much it affects your the latency within your project. Like that's added 667 milliseconds of delay. That's almost like that's over half a second. So like when I hit play now, I can only hear it play from like, so if I hit now, I can hear it. Like is there's a crazy amount of delay, so you can't write a track like whilst using this, or like do anything within a project. It's nuts. But what I'll do is play about the click widening and the sensitivity slider, and that will you don't want to go too crazy with it, because like it will start removing huge chunks of your audio. And then what's great about it is you can output clicks only. You can dial in exactly how much of the clicks and pops from distortion and other things in your project. That could be messing up your sound. But normally, I wouldn't I wouldn't use this so heavily on my master, because it can try to remove some of your transients, especially within your snare, because your snare is like going to have the loudest click and pop at the beginning, really, and maybe like the top end of your kick. It can try to like remove some of those things, but for like basses, pads, reverbs, anything where like there could be some sort of artifact coming through, any of your sends that might have like some drum stuff going through it, because let's say you have maybe a delay on like a delay send for your snare, and you've used a really sharp transient on your snare. You don't want that to be repeating all the time, um, when it comes like through delays and stuff. So it could be nice to like smooth out those. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Isotope RX, one of the best tools. Another thing that I've downloaded recently is Adobe Audition. I need to use it. I do not claim to know how to use this at all in the slightest, but I saw EPROM using it, and he uses it in a similar way. It's a really comprehensive, basically like a separate audio workstation for. I can't open it right now because I need to log in, but it's supposed to be another really good repair tool, basically. Who's messaging me now? Oh, go wake up. I'm busy. Yeah, exactly. Like it's a familiar way to use it. It's really simple controls. You know, Adobe is well far and beyond a hell of a lot more complex, but supposed to have some really cool repair tools. And once I learn a little bit more in that, and once I figure out how he might use it, then I'll probably make a video on like how you can like repair audio within RX, not RX, within the other one. But because it's a whole, basically it's a whole of the DAW essentially, isn't it? But yeah, I'd recommend. Yeah, if you wanted to like repair the audio within all these, I'd definitely recommend using the RX stuff on all your channels, and then like having a fiddle about with which ones work the best. I haven't played about with all of these, but if I was to work on vocals, I'd use like the voice denoise and things like that. But so far, I found that declip and declick really, really useful. Everything else is a bit, yeah, doesn't really apply to the music we make. Really, it's more so for like fixing poor recordings. What else could you use to make it better? I'd say in terms of it being clean, everything sounds fine. I'd focus on like those lower mid things in the bass because they are a little bit pokey. Um, I would work on getting your hats to poke through a little bit more. So just maybe cut out a little bit more space in the mix in the top end. Can I fix the grooving layer with it to make it more groovy? So normally what I do is have I have hats for groove. So I mean, like, so I'll have hats to define rhythm. So they'll be like on the ones and twos, or like like so like tss, 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 that drive the track forward. And then I'll have either other bits of percussion or softer hats, providing the groove. And the groove normally it would be something that like you know because I do a lot of the groove stuff on my keyboard, so like I'll be sat here with like a instrument rack up or a drum rack, and I'll have a sampler set up, and I'll just go like, oh, and I'll just click in like the groove that I want to do, like, and get the vibe in like that, and then just find what hats like sort of fit in there nicely to hit the groove in. Um, and they didn't like, normally what I'll do is I'll quantize it after that as well, so it's not even like that I'm playing it in and it's perfect every time. Like normally it's all quantized and shit. um and normally I'd use like the louder, more pronounced transient hats for those groove hats, and then something a bit softer like a shaker or a um or maybe the same hat but with the attack taken off of it in the sampler. And that and that will provide the groove. And then normally I'd use like a series of different hats to sort of like create that sort of like juxtaposition of like movement and like bounce and sort of like this like sort of sway. And then also within those groovy hats I'd also pan them slightly differently. And to mix hats is really the hardest thing for me. I try but we'll try with a lot less processing, as you said. Yeah, just try and find some decent samples that fits well together. Hats can be a bitch. It's normally why I try and get drums right first when I'm writing music. Um, Normally I'll go like kick, snare, hat, and get the drive. Then I'll go onto the basses. Then I'll go back to the hats, do hats and percussion, and then I'll fill out everything else in the track. Like that's normal. 9 times out of 10 when I approach a track, that's the route that I go with it. Just because drums are so important in terms of getting it to fit right and get the groove right for the way that the music flows. Um, and then onto like how other ways to improve the mix is once you get everything sort of sitting right and everything all has its place and you've got the groove right, then um, then I would go into automation, and making things move and feel more dynamic. Like maybe before the drop, um, like make sure everything's like narrowing up in the stereo field. Maybe removing some of the low end, having like a filter on like your buses or like your set, your groups, and like creating like a sense that the track is like thinning out. And then when the drop comes in, everything like goes wide again, and there's lots of stuff moving around. The other thing you can do as well for making things noticeably wide is by monoing certain sections, or like not monoing, but bringing the width in it for certain bass sounds, and then bringing it out again. So like you have this sense of like changing of it going from um, like a small stereo field to a wide stereo field, and you can use that using isotope insight, um, by by looking at the stereo scope, and then you can see whether sounds are hitting if you have it on the master. I mean, so like, let me show you insight, because I put this on the master of all my tracks whilst I'm writing music, and you can use this stereo field thing. Um, Is that on the master? No, don't know where the fuck I've put that. But this will be on the master, and then from here I can see like how wide certain sounds are and how mono certain sounds are. And then what I'll try to do to create like a really, really wide sense of stereo is like on certain bass hits, I'll have things that are totally out of phase layered in on like a separate sensor. I'll just like obliterate mono compatibility just so that I could create a sense of like for the headphone users this ultra wide sense of stereo, but it's on a send, so it's not destructive in terms of when it is flattened to mono. You know, all that stuff that's anti-phase will be lost, but then the actual bass itself is still mono compatible. But then people that are listening on headphones have this, you know, like, whoa, the width on this track sounds crazy. And it's like, yeah, because I've fucked the phase on a send, you know, and it sounds unnatural and it sounds weird. But, you know, electronic music's kind of supposed to be like that. You know, yeah, exactly. Like the one on Dread, I just fucked the width on a send and just made it stupidly wide. And but you know the trick is to make sure that it's still mono compatible so that when you do play it on a set of speakers um it doesn't sound abnormal, you know. So basically if you put it on a send, like whatever, you just have to make sure that the bass itself is mono compatible, and the way that you do that is by using Insight and by using the stereoscope. And um you know, basically by using this sound field meter, this polar sample or polar level or whatever, there's a positive on the scale and there's a negative on the scale. Yeah, and the correlation needs to be in the positive. That's right. Um, so as long as you're making your bass and it's hitting like, you know, high up in the positives, um, what I'll do is I'll create a separate send and then use as much stereo processing on it as possible, like a Haas effect and choruses, flanges, um, and I'll use them incrementally. I won't like, you know, try and slam it 100% wet on every single stage, but I'll just try and push that correlation meter as much into the negative as I possibly can on that send, so that when I do push that bass into it, there'll be loads of width in it. Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't put wider directly onto the bass itself. Like normally I'd put wider on a send, um, and have that after, like, you know, choruses and things like that to just, you know, to really push it into the crazy zone of width. But yeah, I'd also have like different width sends as well. So I'd have one that's like just running. Yeah. So I'd have like a send for um you know, like mild width, one for crazy width, um and then I'd have like the bass you know, like sort of feed into that and then feed out of it. So like as the track progresses onwards, there's this like sense of like the bass is here, now it's here, now it's here, and it comes back and now it's back again, and it's narrow, and then, you know, and it creates this whole like, you know, it feels like you're, you know, not only is the bass taking you on a journey in like the way that it's being played, but it's also getting larger and smaller in sense of scale, but then the weight is all there. And, you know, you have to think about a mix not only in terms of balance but also in a 3D front to back and left to right sense, you know. And the more that you can try and like get your head around that and push it in every way you possibly can, um you know, you're going to create a really interesting mix at that point. It's hard. It takes a lot of time. There's loads of elements that you have to mix because we're making pretty complex music. But, you know, it's yeah, exactly. That's literally like how it gets that like sense of, you know, um I'm doing this with my hands like, well, you know, but like that's the way that I think about music. It takes you when you're listening to music on a set of speakers in a treated room, and or even on headphones, like it takes you on a journey in a specific way, you know. Yeah, exactly, like ours. Um, and yeah, I need to check that one out. Brow emotion. It's new from Waves. I'll check that out. Let me have a look. I'll save it on my plugin list. Brow. Wait, how do you say that? Brow. Waves. Motion. So I'm a big fan of the Waves plugins. I think they do sound really good. They're definitely a little bit dated, some of them, but that some of the new Sheps modules look really interesting. Modules like the plugins, you know. I use the Waves auto tune all the time on like um, for like processing like little vocal samples and stuff like that. The Waves real tune or real time or whatever it is, Waves tune real time. That is a really sick plugin. Fully recommend that one for trying to get samples in tune and you're lazy when it comes to tuning them. RVox, like Resonance Vox, is a vocal compressor, which is just like a one knob compressor, but works really nicely on vocals. Yeah, that's it. The Sheps Omni channel is supposed to be really good. Yeah, it's totally, yeah, it's probably one of their oldest plugins, but it's, you know, really dope. Ah, okay, Brow Emotion. Okay, I'm gonna add this to the plugins list. Nice one, man. Appreciate that. That's a good little. I'm gonna watch a video on that before I go to bed. Is there anything else you want to know just before we like end this session? Because it's getting kind of late for me now. I'm sure for you as well. And like, also don't forget, like, you're because you're subscribed on the Patreon, you can literally hit me up anytime with any questions you want. Like, I'll take time out to answer any questions you've got about any mixes and stuff like that. That's part of what the Patreon's about. You can always just get in touch with me anytime. I'll get back to you within a day or so, usually, at the latest. Yeah, no worries, man. Literally anytime. Just yeah, I will be posting more stuff to it. I haven't posted anything to YouTube and stuff recently because I've just been like going through some family stuff and some personal shit, and my headspace is a bit messed up at the minute because of lockdown and stuff in this country. But I'm trying to find a video editor to help me take off the load when it comes to editing videos and stuff because it's just something that I'm really not enjoying at the minute. But I do want to I really want to be putting out more videos. I just need to find a way to get past the editing process because it's just the most mind-numbing shit for me. I just want to be making music and making videos, but then not actually have to edit them and upload them and stuff like that. So okay, so just one thing. Tell me three things. Yeah, definitely. Um, I need to listen to the. Okay, in terms of a production thing, one thing that I would maybe recommend, maybe not for this track, but maybe for your tracks moving forward, um, is I wouldn't use a sub that continues throughout the entire track. Sometimes it's nice to create like a gap in the subs and have a little breathing space because sometimes to have like a sub constantly pumping Um, like it sounds good, like when you're doing it, but it's just something that you know, having like a sub um hit and then not hit and then hit again, um, it definitely it creates more power, has more space in your mix, creates a little bit more variation. Doesn't feel like it's constantly rolling the entire time. Um, yeah, it's just and like it allows you to create like accents in the track. Like what I like to do in a lot of my tracks is like have a bit of percussion that just like hits once, then there's like loads of space, and then you hit and then you come back in with something else or a new element. Um, yeah. If there's anything else. Um, I think as well, maybe like just like one more thing to end it on is maybe I think the track might come in with like loads of effects too soon. You know, um, what I like to do with like the first at least 4 to 8 bars of my track once it drops is have things quite stripped back and then have like an A and B section to it, so that like um, you know, more effects and background noises will come in like after the first 4 to 8 bars. Um, if they were automated, do you think it would make a difference? Maybe, or maybe it's just a matter of just maybe removing some of those elements for that first bit. So like, I know that these aren't like the sections I'm on about, but let's say those are like the effects and like you know the sort of like granular bits or whatever's going on with like the you know like the background noises, just like remove them for like that one section, or like let's say there's like a 16 bar period of where they play over, maybe have 4 bars where they're not playing, 4 bars where they are, and then 4 bars again where they're not, just to like have this like sort of coming and going, like yeah, like give it a little bit of space to breathe and like have those sounds like come and go again, because sometimes it's good to have things drift away for a bit and then it's like, oh, these sounds are back again, and it's like, oh, and I like this bit because this bit's where like this groove comes in, and just have a little bit of separation, but just with some elements though. Don't go too crazy with it, but it's just nice to have like with background elements for them to come and go, because it also, it's like white noise when you put it on a bass and it adds all this extra energy. It's like it's kind of like that. It's like the white noise of your track, you know. It's the filler stuff, and you know, these little bits can sort of fill in blanks, but sometimes it's nice to have blanks there, you know, to create that space. And then when the like when you want the track to progress on with a little bit more energy in the background, then you can fill in those bits as and when. um Another thing, maybe, because you like to use a lot of background sounds and stuff, is maybe use um like Foley for your percussion as well. I've been doing that a lot recently, and like layering snares with like little Foley hits and stuff. I know Cymatics do a lot of great Foley packs that you might already have. Um, so that might be something to look into, like layering um, bits of Foley in with your percussion and stuff like that. Yeah, no, my friends, that my housemate's got a Tascam, and like the other day we were in the kitchen just recording everything and creating our own little kitchen samples and shit, slamming the oven door and trying to make a kick out of it. Yeah, trust me. He is the Foley god. He's sick. 100%. Have you heard his stuff with Tice from Noisia? Um, like he's done some stuff with them and it's crazy. And I think he's isn't he part of Two Fingers as well? I think he's Two Fingers. It's the musical alter ego from Amon Tobin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I do know Cujo. Cujo's mad. No, that's so sick. All right, bro. I think I'm gonna call it a day now, if that's cool. Um, I'm feeling like I'm about to pass out in a minute. Yeah, man. But yeah, it's great talking to you. Like, hit me up when you want to do the next one. It should be like, yeah, the next time. You know, if you're still sticking around by then, anyways. By the time the payment comes out or whatever for the next month, just hit me up, and then we can do another one if you want. But yeah, I like to see where this track ends up, or where some of your next stuff comes along from. So next time you make a tune and you've got like an idea, bounce out and send it to me. And I'll give it a listen. Anyways, have a good night, man. We'll do that. Nice one, bro. See you soon. Bye.